You want to do one of your famous intros?
Yeah. Another episode. Welcome for another episode. I'm terrible at them.
You don't have like your reading prompt, your little script.
Energizing. Like, what do we say? What do we even say when we start?
It's like when my mom films me as a kid. It was like every video was just like, "There's Jake. There he is.
That's Jacob.
Like, there he is again.
There he is riding his bike. There he is climbing a tree." Yeah.
Did she narrate like what the date was? And what the event
all
was?
Of it. It's all on like VHS.
There you go.
April 3rd, Jake's riding a bike.
Justin, my mom.
Yeah.
Pretty much same thing.
Which the days of the whole, dads holding the camcorder thing are gone now because of this. Oh, yeah. Right?
It's way more convenient.
I have like 15,000 like pictures and videos on my phone. And it's like mostly my kids.
Yeah, totally. Well, we got Austin Wilcox here from AQ Capital and from the Bitcoin Endowment. Austin is seriously one of my favorite people I've met in the space, and I do say that a lot because we normally do have just our buddies on here, but honestly, you've been great to get to know over the last couple of years, year and a half.
Yeah.
I
likewise, by the way.
Yeah,
Justin.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. But yeah, I'm very excited to talk about your stuff you got going on because I think it's very, very cool. I think it's something that is going to be embraced by a lot of groups for a multitude of reasons, both economically for them, there's some benefit, but also just from an outreach standpoint. And I won't dive into. I'm gonna let you talk about it, but I'm excited about it to really kind of get more attention for what you're doing and kind of the benefits of it, not only for miners and kind of some economic value, but like the intrinsic value that you're going to bring to a lot of people and to yourself for putting something like this together.
Thanks, dude.
So
I appreciate that.
Man, we're excited to hear about it, but Austin's been great, dude. He's out of Dallas, right? Just let you tell the story. So tell us about yourself, like how you got into Bitcoin, your journey into.
Oh man, how much time do we have? Lock the doors.
Yeah, lock it. We got plenty of time.
Let's start off with what do you do? What's your elevator pitch? And then let's hear the whole story.
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, thanks guys. I appreciate it. Super excited. Cheers, by the way. Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris Alfano, for this bottle.
Yep.
Thank you, Chris.
But so first and foremost, I'm a Bitcoiner. So that's what I do. So when people ask me what I do, I kind of respond with well, what's your Bitcoin strategy, right?
Yeah.
So AQ Capital, we're a Bitcoin focused investment firm. So we believe that a Bitcoin strategy goes beyond just holding Bitcoin and figuring out how to not lose it. So we invest in ventures, we invest in miners, and then we want to do all that tax efficiently as part of a broader Bitcoin strategy, which we'll get into, I'm sure, later on. And then as part of that strategy, then on the tax efficiency side, we launched what's called the Bitcoin Endowment. So we're doing business as the Bitcoin Endowment. It's called AQ Giving, DBA, the Bitcoin Endowment. And we'll get into that mission, I'm sure, at some point, because it really triggered Justin in terms of his belief and our connection within that. And the mission is really simple there. And that's really to accelerate and spread the core values of Bitcoin, the shared values of Bitcoin and Bitcoin, the ethos, to the rest of the world. We're all in this space because we believe Bitcoin is good.
Right.
And I think there's a disconnect with the rest of the world understanding that. And so we want to accelerate that ethos through the Bitcoin Endowment.
I think what's funny is I think all of us are probably guilty of being those guys at the bar. You get too many drinks in this. It's like, let me talk to you about Bitcoin, right? And then 7 hours later, somebody's just like, oh my God, this guy was showed that. And you've been able to make a living out of it. I'm a little jealous. I guess I have too. And I guess we all have. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, it's kind of what we do.
But it's like cool that that's like your singular focus.
Yeah.
Moving forward. So how did you get into Bitcoin? I think that's always an important part.
Oh yeah. Do we want to talk like background, and just how I grew up or stuff like that? Because I feel like a lot of people get
whatever
into.
you think's important.
Gosh,
dude,
there's a lot of things that are important.
There's no clock on this. So
there's no clock.
No.
We might run out of whiskey at some
point.
Right.
That's the clock, the bottle.
Well, the reason I ask that is because I think people come to Bitcoin based on a worldview or a bias or some sort of life experience that leads them to Bitcoin in different ways. So I grew up, I'm an Iowan, so I'm a proud Iowan. I grew up in, the middle of the Middle West in a middle class town with a middle class family, and I was the middle child. And so, grew up with those, kind of core values of hard work. I can always hear my dad's, voice in my head, the harder that you work, the luckier you get. And I think he learned that from his dad. But then also just, if you've ever met an Iowan before, they're just really nice people. They're just good people. So
they're almost as good as Missourians.
I mean,
it's crazy.
Midwest, baby.
Yeah, Midwest.
Yeah. So, like my grandmother's, one of her, because we're going to talk, you hear me talk a lot about values, core values, shared values. And one of her values was, just be a good person.
Yeah.
And so grew up in Des Moines, went to West Des Moines Valley was the high school, got recruited to play baseball at the University of Iowa. So went to the University of Iowa. I ended up not playing baseball there. I practiced baseball there for a year. I redshirt my freshman year and watch us we weren't last in the Big Ten. We were like, if there was a place below last place, we were there. We were bottom of the Big Ten, and I was on the bench. So if that tells you anything about my baseball career,
hey man, you played at Iowa. You practiced at Iowa. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, but in my defense, I was majoring in a couple other things. I was majoring in finance through the business school. I was majoring in girls and partying.
Oh yeah.
University of Iowa. We know how to do it up there. We know how to do it up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then after business school, we do what all of us do, which is, who's going to hire me? How do I get a job? And I had a summer internship with a risk management and consulting firm in the insurance industry. And at that time, I thought I was going to get into investment banking, mainly because do you guys remember? Yeah, of course you do, because now it's a movie. The movie Moneyball.
Oh yeah.
And then the book Moneyball.
Right.
So
and
right,
you're like, I played baseball. You're like, I studied finance. Like,
I can do this.
I could be Jonah Hill.
I could be Jonah Hill. I could be Billy Bean. Like, what the heck? I want to do this. Well, that's what got me into finance, because I was a baseball player, and at that time, then baseball analytics really started taking off, and I was reading things like Bill James and reading Baseball Prospectus. And I'm a massive Chicago Cubs fan. Grew up going to Wrigley Field.
I'm sorry, bro.
Are you a Cardinals fan?
I'm a huge Cardinals fan.
Dude,
I liked you so much, man.
I thought we were friends.
I did.
We're going to have to catch a baseball.
Show's over. Let's go. I'm playing good.
I think, how are the Cardinals doing this
Terrible.
year? Okay, that's why I asked.
Yeah, I know. I figured they're horrible this year. It's embarrassing,
but I got into finance because as I realized I wasn't going to go pro in baseball, I was going to go pro in something else. The analytics side of the game really started taking shape with me. And I wrote, and at the time you could tell the Cubs GM, Jim Hendry, was not an analytics-based guy. Whatever it is Billy Bean was doing, Jim Hendry was on the opposite side of the spectrum. Whereas Billy Bean would look at a guy's stats and maybe what his, on base percentage and slugging and how he does this and that and what that means for his fair market valuation. Is he undervalued or overvalued? Jim Hendry's like, dang, that guy looks like a baseball player. He just looks like a baseball player. Right. And I'm way oversimplifying.
What does that even mean?
That's right. I mean? Yeah. That's right. And so I wrote an open letter to Jim Hendry of all the mistakes he was making, as a college freshman studying all this stuff. He never responded to my letter, and he never made those changes. But he was subsequently fired, and the Cubs eventually, hired Theo Epstein, who was a disciple of Billy Bean, and they went on to win the World Series. So there was something there. But that's what got me, baseball is what got me fascinated in finance, and then finance is what eventually, of course, led me to Bitcoin. So at that time in college, I was interviewing with investment banks. I thought for sure I was going to be an investment banker, do the thing, and when I interviewed with the investment banks, walking around the offices and seeing all the people in the corner offices, sure, they certainly looked wealthy, but they looked miserable.
Mm-hmm. There's one thing about investment bankers. It's like you're miserable. You're so overworked.
Yeah.
You're so overworked. I remember there was a guy that I was friends with who was just like, I'm going back into investment banking. He was just like, this is probably my last, we're at the gym. He's like, this is probably like my last workout. He's like, I don't think I'll probably be working out for like the next 3 years. He was like, I go in at 7, I leave at like 3 a.m. I sleep for a few hours. I come back and I just do it again. I work weekends. He was like, I can't have a girlfriend.
Dude.
That's pretty accurate. Like if you really want to get ahead, it's like working on Wall Street almost. Like you have to just grind it out for like years. But hey, if you have the ability to just,
I guess, man,
to be laser focused and just burn the candle from both ends, you can walk away pretty wealthy.
Yeah, they can. But for me, and look, everybody's got their own journey they're going. But I have zero desire. Like we're all dying. You know what I mean?
That's right.
You're all dying. I don't want to spend it behind a freaking desk doing that stuff all day long.
I'm optimizing for freedom, baby.
Right. That's right. Me too. That's probably a good lead into the Bitcoin stuff. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because wealth is not money. Wealth is
No.
time and,
Right.
and the freedom to do things. And I always knew I wanted to be wealthy because I wanted to have that freedom of time to be able to do whatever the heck it was that I wanted to do, whether that was write letters to baseball GMs or, do whatever, right? And so so I walked around that office. Everyone looked miserable. And then I walked around the offices of a local, risk management insurance firm, and everyone looked super happy. And I started to learn more about the firm, and the whole idea was, well, in the first couple of years, you're going to work like 3 people and get paid like 1. But then as long as you work hard and put in the work, proof of work, what comes on the other side is you get to work like 1 person and get paid like 3 for the rest of your life with insurance, sales, so to speak, right? With the annuity aspect of it. So that was really appealing to me. I got broad exposure to that industry. Risk management, finance, captive insurance, employee benefits, property casualty, all kinds of great stuff. And then to make a long story long, apologies. Again, how much time do we have?
We're good.
I ended up putting some data sets together that caught the attention of some of the higher ups. And at that time I was mentoring directly under the CEO. He had, kind of this formal mentorship program, and he taught me the first rule of sales. What do you guys think the first rule of sales is?
It always be closing or something? What does Michael Scott say?
That's a pretty good one. Yeah.
That's a pretty good one.
First rule of sales. I think sell to people who have money.
Never take no for an answer or something.
That's a good one.
All right.
So his first rule of sales, I'll never forget, Doug Reichart, this amazing, incredible man, the type of person you spend 30 minutes with him, and afterwards you just want to run through a brick wall and just work so hard, right? Just one of those people. And he said, you can't get what you want until they get what they want.
That's good. That is good.
And
I was not going to guess that either. So
yeah. And the whole premise around that is just ask people what they want and then be of service to them. And everything in life is on the other side of providing value to others. So that mentorship really took me to places I never thought I would go. And so I ended up getting connected with some of our business leaders down in the Dallas office. At that time, they were working on this. It was just kind of an idea and project. They had a little bit of revenue. And I joined them with the startup. So I was kind of employee number 1 or 2, depending on how you look at it, right? And the idea was bringing this product to market in the digital health space that would help companies prevent diabetes in populations. As soon as someone goes from, pre-diabetic to diabetic, their healthcare costs go from $2,000 to $20,000.
Oh, man.
So employers were really incentivized to, reduce that risk. So we were there to help them do it. So we did that. I ended up becoming head of sales. We grew like crazy as a digital health company. We brought on some massive companies onto that. I think by the time I left, we had, 500,000 people on the platform or so. And we successfully sold to a private equity at an awesome valuation. And at that point was, as we were going through the sales process, was when I was going through my Bitcoin journey and the light bulbs went off. And that's when I realized I need to take my skill set to Bitcoin. I really want to work for Bitcoin. I no longer want to work for healthcare. I want to work for the Bitcoin network. And that's the background, I guess, to how I got to Bitcoin. But we can get more into the Bitcoin journey specifically if we'd like.
That's really cool. I like hearing people's stories all the time because they're different, but there's always kind of this one kind of string of uniformity where it's usually kind of a realization moment rather than just kind of, it just being something you developed. And our producer today, it keeps playing his phone fairly loud. He needs to turn it down all the way. Jackson Ballard, please shut the volume off. Thank you.
You're doing a great job producing.
You're doing a great job producing, but the background soundtrack is not the best. So we got it off. Cool. Thank you. But yeah, it's kind of a realization, and it was for me too. It was kind of an intrigue, and then it was kind of just a moment where I recognized that's what I want to do. And I'm not joking. Turn it off. Not joking. Okay. But mine was more of like a longer kind of transition into the realization moment where I played around in Bitcoin and crypto and stuff, and then I after I finally kind of learned the difference of what Bitcoin is to the other ones, that's when I kind of dove in. But so can you talk before we go into AQ Capital? I do want to get into the Bitcoin endowment stuff quite a bit.
Okay.
Do you mind jumping into that, or should we go AQ Capital and then the endowment?
Well, let's do Bitcoin journey quick.
Okay. All right.
And it's not, the story's not any different probably than a lot of the other stories. It's like you first hear about it, then you completely dismiss it.
Right.
And then you
especially from a finance background. Like,
and I blame myself, wrongfully so, but the individual, so I first got introduced to it when it was like $500. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what was that, like 2015?
2015, 16. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was a co-location guy, one of my good friends who did co-location of software data, and he was talking about how these miners are looking for these coins on the internet and they use a lot of energy, and it costs a lot to find these coins, and then a coin gets released once, and I'm like, dude, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, people are running around collecting Super Mario coins on the internet, and they're paying how much for them? $500? Okay. You'd sound like an idiot.
Yeah.
Roll the calendar forward. Next time I hear about it is probably 2016, 2017 when it starts doing the bull run, right?
ICOs are taking off.
Yeah. Right. And then the next time you hear about it, the price isn't $500, it's $2,000. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of makes you do a head turn, right? As a finance guy, I've always managed my own assets. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to buy a little bit of this stuff, learn about it. Mm-hmm. And then, experience the bull run, the escalator up, and then the elevator went down.
Yeah.
And it's at that point when the elevator goes down that you either do the work or you don't. Mm. Right. And so I chose to not sell it. I chose to do the work. And I'm so thankful for people like Tour de Meester with his, do you guys remember the Bitcoin is in heavy accumulation?
No.
It's a fantastic paper. I think it was like 2018. Mm-hmm. Of course, a lot of the podcasts were coming out at that time. Andreas Antonopoulos, Anthony Pompliano, of all people, he was very vocal with his and helped with my conviction. And then Saifedean. Yeah. Saifedean's book came out. And I read that and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And that's when I realized, and then the stock to flow model came out, regardless of whether you believe in the validity of it or not. I think having a fundamental understanding that there is potentially real world value in something that's provably scarce, I think was another light bulb moment for me. It was kind of the cherry on top of Saifedean's book a little bit.
Yeah.
And
it's like this. Yeah. It's like the thing that gives you security, that reading Bitcoin Standard and then knowing, like, building in that scarcity issue. That I agree. That for me was kind of like, all right, he's laying out the use case, and then just knowing the scarcity issue, it's like, all right, that makes it a good chance that there's a high probability that, like, there's going to be some value in this long term. That's like you said, that was for me too.
I'm with you, dude. Yeah. Really. And I had never, even as a finance guy who took econ classes, and you understand supply and demand, but you're not taught, like, okay, you can be, a company can dilute shares at any moment. You're taught that, but you don't see it until you don't understand the dilutive value of those other assets until you understand Bitcoin, and Bitcoin, literally, you can't be diluted. So that was huge. And then that was when I was like, I had that kind of Pierre Rochard moment where I'm like, I got to sell the chairs, so to speak. So my chairs at the time were, my other assets, right? So selling real estate, selling the stock in my company. We went through the sales process and sold to private equity, selling my other equities, quite literally selling some of my chairs, right? And going into Bitcoin. And I just remember viscerally, just, when sending wire transfers into, Coinbase at the time. Yes, I don't use them anymore. But
when I could, when I could finally get a deposit to go through from the bank to, like, a Coinbase or a Bitstamp. I was buying stuff on Bitstamp back in, like, 2016, 2017.
Wow.
It was pretty sketchy in the early days.
Oh my gosh.
It's like,
you're like taking a picture of yourself holding your ID and stuff. It just felt really freaking weird. I was like, this doesn't feel right at all, but
the numbers finally show up and your wire is, landed.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting there going, you guys probably had this moment too. It's like, am I really buying magic internet money?
I know. And I wasn't even using, like, cold storage at the time. It was like, I'm just leaving it on an exchange, like a lot of people do. Yeah. And Like I didn't even think of that stuff. And so looking now, I'm like, gosh, I was an idiot.
That's the normal life cycle of anybody, though.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it is. And we shouldn't shy away from that being the reality. Like there's a lot of people like, it's almost like they're talking down to people about like cold storage or this, like, take it off there. Don't be an idiot. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, look, man, nobody knew when you started this stuff. You know what I mean?
There's a little bit of a learning curve.
Especially guys like, at least me, you guys are smarter than me, but like, I didn't think of that shit at all. Like, not at all. I was just kind of like, oh, buy it. And I finally got a transaction through. Like, I'm good. It's all right there. See you. And, you know, you don't even think about like an SBF situation or something like that. At least I didn't. So, yeah, I can see how, you know, that stuff happens to people, but also the learning that we've done over the last like 4 or 5 years as like a bigger populace in the Bitcoin world is pretty tremendous. So, yeah. So many dumb things I look back on. I'm like, golly.
But buying Bitcoin was not one of them.
Buying Bitcoin was not one of them. I did sell a lot of Bitcoin because I listened to people that I assumed were smarter than me. Because like I didn't come from much money or really kind of any type of financial background whatsoever. And, you know, I got done with law school and started working in Anadarko, and I had so many people, friends of mine that were like, you're an idiot. Stop buying this stuff. It's for criminal activity. It's drug stuff. You're going to go to jail. And I'm like, am I going to go to jail? I don't know. So I sold a lot of it. Now I look back and some of those people ask me, they're like, hey man, so you should sell it. How much Bitcoin you got? You're rich, right? I'm like, no, I sold it because of you. You know, it's really frustrating, but.
And I was, and you know, me being the finance guy and reading about the psychology of investing and all that, I was kind of I was always straddling two worlds of trying not to listen to the people who were saying that, which was mainstream media, which was Warren Buffett, which was Charlie Munger, which is Jamie, you know, people I like and respect, and people that really helped shape a lot of my core investment thesis, you know, frameworks for how I choose what assets to buy and choose what assets not to buy. And then so I'm straddling this world, like trying not to listen to them, but then I'm also going, holy crap.
Right.
These are the incumbents who clearly are threatened or they don't understand it. Both of those things mean this thing is undervalued. Right.
That's a good point too.
And so that was really where I'm like, you know, I felt like every time I was buying Bitcoin and sending wires into Coinbase, I felt sick to my stomach. And it's almost in those moments when you hear some investors talk about this, where it's like, if you're not a little sick to your stomach, then it's probably not a good, you know, investment idea.
Yeah.
So that was there. You know, Bitcoin did its thing. We sold our company successfully to a private equity. You know, loved those guys. I signed a transition services agreement. You know, gently stepped away once the team was in place to help grow and scale. And they're doing wonderfully now. That the company's literally called Wonder Health.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was at that time I launched AQ Capital. And I launched AQ Capital under the thesis that one, if Bitcoin does what I think it's going to do, there's going to be more and more Bitcoin millionaires minted every single day, and they're going to need help. And they're going to need help from people who have been there, done that, you know, got the t-shirt, skinned their knees, made mistakes, did all that. But then AQ Capital was more formed actually around how I eventually led into the Bitcoin Endowment, which was you almost come to Bitcoin first with what can Bitcoin do for me?
Right.
Whether it's inflation resistance, whether it's getting wealthy and selling it for a Tesla, you know, like I think that was like my first like 2016 moment. I was like, oh, I'm going to, you know, flip this and buy a Tesla, you know, whatever. You know, you're just being a knucklehead. Get inflation resistance. It's part of a broader portfolio. You know, there's all kinds of use cases, as we know, for Bitcoin and what Bitcoin can do for me, right? That's how we come to it.
Ask not what Bitcoin can do for you, but what you can do for Bitcoin.
That's right. Well said, Jake.
Thanks, JFK.
Yeah.
That should be the opener to your podcast right there. That's it. Right there.
Yeah, that's a great one.
But seriously, though, once you get involved, then you realize, wait a minute, the incentives are aligned for me to add value and to do something for Bitcoin. And whether that's getting other people involved, or whether that's sending energy into the network as a miner, whether that's running a node, whether that's simply hodling. I mean, that's doing something for Bitcoin. It is, right? You're setting the floor of supply, right? But I started asking myself those questions. I know I want to work in Bitcoin. I know I want to work for Bitcoin. What can I do for Bitcoin? What can I do for Bitcoin? And if you go around and around and around on that circle and ask yourself that question enough, you eventually land on, what you can do for Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And so 2 years later, launching the Bitcoin Endowment, which is a nonprofit in the Bitcoin space. And that's what I'm here to do for Bitcoin.
Well, and so tell us about that a little bit more. Like, what is the Bitcoin Endowment? How does it fit in with like miners? And kind of just tell us a little bit about it, because it is, I love it. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah. So there's a couple key moments that really inspired this. I'm going to point out two. One is from Eric Weinstein on Robert Breedlove's podcast. Have you guys seen that series? If you haven't watched that series, I find him to be one of the deepest, best thinkers in Bitcoin. Robert himself, of course, but then also Eric.
Whose podcast is it?
On Robert Breedlove's podcast, the What is Money podcast.
Right.
Yep. And so Eric was on there coming to Bitcoin and coming to Robert very much as a skeptic first. And skeptical because what Eric was observing was, okay, Bitcoiners, you win. You think you won. And now that I've done the work, I realize that, okay, you're winning and maybe you've actually won. Maybe this, path dependence, it's on the path. It's going to do its thing. It's reached critical mass. It's reached network effect, escape velocity, all the buzzwords, right? What now? What are you going to do about it? You going to buy Lambos?
Right.
You going to retire? You're going to live in a mansion by the beach? What are you going to do about it? When you guys, okay, so you believe in sound money, you believe in low time preference, you believe in truth, you believe in freedom, you believe in individual sovereignty, you believe in fairness, you believe in equality. You believe in all these things, and you represent that by buying this asset that makes you wealthy beyond your imagination. Okay, I'll admit, you guys maybe you're the big boys at the table, or you will be in the future. What are you going to do about it? Because so far, these are Eric's words, or were his words. I don't know if there still are. Said, because so far, what I'm observing, I haven't observed much from you guys. Mm. So that was like a holy shit moment in that regard. Like, he's right. He's right. We believe this thing is good. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's doing good for me, but what am I doing with it? Right. So you start to think about, think low time preference, like legacy, doing good, giving back. Right. Some of those words come in. So take Eric Weinstein, put that aside for a moment. We'll come back to that. And then there was another series. It happens to be on Robert's podcast as well. I listen to a lot of Robert. I listen to a lot of people. I feel like I'm crawling on the shoulder of giants anytime I talk about Bitcoin. They're not original thoughts from Austin.
He's only listened to our show twice, though. He said it's kind of messed
like
up.
I said, crawling on the shoulder of giants. First time caller, long time listener.
But I find though the guys who were true skeptics that have converted, they're usually like the best advocates, because there's been an actual process to their like learning curve, and to where they had questions that they went in that were likely educated and very fair questions that you need to get answered. They got those answered. They did the analysis and like come to that conclusion. It makes them a lot more prominent or powerful advocates for the 100%. Whole space. And that, what you said he was talking about with Lambos and all that, I think both of us, that's part of what we want to do, even this show is about, is just kind of dispel the narrative that has been kind of painted around it. And that's some of it's the community's own fault, buying Lambos and all this kind of crap. It's like, look, dude.
Have fun staying poor.
Right. You come across as a douchebag when you do that. And it's not something that anybody from an institutional level wants to be a part of. And it just looks ridiculous. So, look, I'm glad if somebody can afford to buy a Lambo from their Bitcoin or accumulation. Good. I got a lot more things that I'd rather do with it than drive a Lambo around. And that's why I think what you're doing is awesome. So carry on. My bad.
No, it's just me rambling over here. So jump in and keep me on track.
I love it. So I want, keep going.
So that was a that was a wake up moment for me with AQ Capital, with him saying that. And I always knew I wanted to launch a nonprofit just as a personal goal of mine. That's gone back years and years and years. And then some of that is also, just observing with some of the giving I've done in the past. Like a moment stands out to me. So I mentioned my grandmother earlier and her values, and she passed away in 2022, 90 plus years old. Just there's not a single person who met this woman who didn't feel like she was their best friend. I mean, that was just the type of impact she had on people. And as she was nearing, towards the end of her life, I had the chance to sit down with her, and I asked her, just kind of like, as a young man, hopefully you're asking your elders, like, what the hell is this all about? Like, what do you think? Like, why am I here? What is this? And her advice was just be a good person.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Really not that much harder than that. Just be a good person. And that really stuck with me. And so when Eric said that, and then I pieced that together with a previous pod that Robert had with the Michael Saylor series, which is probably 50 hours of some of the best content that I think I've ever, heard or read in my life.
He's so articulate with everything. He's able to take these very complex concepts and explain it like you're 10 years old.
That's right.
Anybody can understand it.
That's right. And so we now have like these sayings that came from, now Michael, where we say, oh, Bitcoin is energy, Bitcoin is economic energy, Bitcoin is hope. And it's like, okay, that's a bit esoteric, but why?
Right.
And I have a hard time explaining some of the why. I was like, well, just listen to Michael. just ask him.
Yeah.
But Michael had this segment where he was talking about, the promise of Bitcoin and the values of Bitcoin and what is it at its core. And the promise of Bitcoin is, in some respects, being able to store your life's energy forever without someone debasing it, without someone confiscating it, without someone devaluing that, without energy loss. You can perpetuate your energy into the future. So in some respects, Bitcoin it's an elixir. It's immortal life. It's the promise of immortal life, which sounds, you start using words like that and it sounds like very religious almost. And so he unpacked in this segment, it's episode 7 for the listeners at home, where
Mom, write it down.
Episode 7, minute like 50. I have the Weinstein segment too, if you guys need that. Where he basically was talking about all of us as individuals, as humans, should have core values, should have our own values, and you should align your values with your life's work, with your passion, and you should also align yourself with others who share in your values. That makes life much more fulfilling, much happier, more productive, etc. And hopefully those values are good. And what Michael talked about is the promise of Bitcoin as this long duration asset that you can send energy and value into the future without loss. Is imagine endowing Bitcoin today in the present towards a cause that you love and towards something that sends your values into the future. So, and this is what he talked about. He's like, so if you want to endow a park that serves ice cream on Saturdays forever, endow it with some Bitcoin, peel a little bit of principal off each year towards that mission, and you can effectively have that park serving ice cream forever in your memory. And those two things is what inspired what we launched with the Bitcoin Endowment. So what we've done here is we've aligned incentives in a way for Bitcoiners to really put facta non verba, deeds, not words. Let's quit talking about how good Bitcoin is and go round and round the drain. Let's show people how good Bitcoin is, because Bitcoin does not have a concerted effort of giving back in doing good. So we've launched the endowment that allows us to do kind of 3 specific things. An individual, and it's going to be a Bitcoiner because that's who we're catering to, can endow any asset to us wants. So it's jewelry, could be Apple stock, could be real estate, could be a private business interest, could be a public business interest, could be Hashrate, which we'll get into in a moment, could be cash, could be Bitcoin, Could be one of those other coins.
Mm-hmm.
You endow that asset tax efficiently. We'll tell you how to do it tax efficiently, even though we don't give investment advice, we don't give tax advice, we don't give legal advice.
Good plug.
I don't do any of those things.
Well covered.
Thank
disclaimer.
you, attorneys.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You can endow any asset. We'll help you do that tax efficiently. As soon as that asset comes into the endowment, we're going to liquidate it and sell it for Bitcoin. So that irrevocable donation's made. The Bitcoin is then in the treasury compounding. It's in a 2 of 3 multi-sig, so you'll have one of the keys, so you'll be able to see your Bitcoin at all times. And then you choose a charity of your choice and a Bitcoin nonprofit of your choice that you want us to fund in perpetuity forever. So we'll just peel off a little bit of principal to a charity of your choice in perpetuity forever. So if you want to send some to, Odell and the OpenSats guys to fund core developers and free and open source software, great. But then also tell us another 501c3 or charity that you want us to go orange pill.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
See, that's an aspect too that probably is just as important as getting some of these other groups to understand that. That's a way of orange pilling a big segment of the population that really is going to touch a lot of people. And that's what's going to drive adoption. So I love it. Talk about the mining aspect of it, because this is really where I think it could really come into play for a lot of mining groups out there in particular, with the dedication to the hash rate stuff.
Yeah, because to your last point, there's a little over $10 trillion in assets under management for 501c3s around the country.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So to 10 trillion?
Over 10 trillion.
So there's 10 trillion in nonprofits in the US?
$10 trillion
on their balance sheets today.
That's like, when you say that trillion. Number, that's a lot, man.
That's like what, 8 Saudi Aramcos?
Yeah, something like that.
And it's private foundations, it's other things. It's the Rockefeller Institute. It's, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's those other things. But yeah, 10 trillion. So, kind of one of our core values of what we want to do is we want to come with Bitcoin in hand, coming from Bitcoiners, say, hey, we got to teach you how to accept Bitcoin. We also want to teach you how it should be the last asset on your balance sheet that you sell to fund your operations. We want to orange pill the 10 trillion of 501c3. So for miners, this is like, I love this aspect of it.
I do too. That's why I want to have you on here, man. That, and we love you, Austin. So those two things combined, yeah.
So lot to unpack here, but so first and foremost, the promise of Bitcoin will never, one Bitcoin does not equal one Bitcoin 100 years from now if the miners aren't doing their job. So if there's anybody incentivized to ossify this social layer of Bitcoin being good and the rest of the world adopting Bitcoin, if there's any one group of people who is incentivized to do this, it's the miners and the nodes. The nodes just don't really have much economic energy behind them. The miners do. So how do you incentivize miners to have an ethos of giving is the question that I was looking to tackle and that we were looking to tackle. So it comes to tax efficiency. If you want to donate some cash, it's not really that tax efficient. If you're a miner and you work your butt off to get as much hash rate online to earn Bitcoin, actually donating Bitcoin with the new updates to the IRS regs is not very tax efficient as well. It's kind of brutal. Over $5,000, if you want to donate over $5,000 worth of Bitcoin, again, this is not tax advice. You have to get a fair market valuation from an independent accountant and appraiser.
Really?
Because you can't donate it and write it off at a fair market value of what the price is today.
Really?
It's a combination of the cost basis, how long you've been holding it.
And that probably does not factor in like future appreciation of anything. Yeah.
And if you want to donate Apple stock today or public securities, you can do it at fair market value of what the price traded at yesterday. So it's like they're treating, again, it's just another example of them treating Bitcoin very differently than everything else. So miners, donating cash isn't tax efficient. Donating Bitcoin is not tax efficient. Donating ASICs is not tax efficient. What you're going to donate?
The value, yeah.
You're going to donate to us an old ASIC. Okay, great. It's an old ASIC that you don't want for a reason.
Right,
it's because okay, if I've got to plug it in as a nonprofit, even if I'm tax exempt, Like, good luck keeping up, with the cost basis of Riot and the others, right? So that's not tax efficient for them. It's not efficient for us. So no one wins there. So what we've come up with is a way to value hash rate. And this is the most we whipped the pencil on this for over 12 months. And we've come up with a novel way of valuing hash rate that makes it incredibly tax efficient for the miners. And as a miner, the calculus, kind of coming back to the AQ Capital stuff on this, the calculus that they'll do in their mind is, if you're a miner, let me ask you guys this. What percentage of the mining market calls their mining business a project versus a business?
What percentage of the mining world calls it a project versus a business? I'd say probably the majority.
Most of them call it a project?
Yeah, this is my guess.
Why is that?
Because I don't know what everyone thinks of the lifespan on it. I would call it like that was our company. You know what I mean? Like we were a mining company at J. But I feel like there's a short lifespan on a lot of the stuff. And so they might have a business, but they're calling it a project. You know what I mean? At least that's my guess.
It's been right in front of us this entire. I never thought about this, but you're absolutely right. What's the answer?
Well, most of them call it a project because of the capital intensity of the business. Yeah. They're like, okay, I'm going to go out and raise a bunch of money.
This is our project over here.
We just secured some cheap energy somewhere. We've got this angle or that angle, right? Where it's attached to a solar farm. It's attached to, cheap grid contract, or it's behind the meter, all the things that you guys know much better than I, even though I invest in miners. But they call it a project because it's like, okay, we're going to raise the money. We're going to buy a bunch of ASICs. We're going to plug them in. These ASICs depreciate like heck.
Right.
And whether it's 2 years down the road or 4 years down the road, at some point, these things are just a hunk of metal because they're not profitable. And it's time to buy more. So fold the project, distribute everything to shareholders. Let's raise more money. It's not a going concern business.
Right.
The capital intensity of business, the asset turnover is a struggle. So it's like your only options are, if you're a miner who's 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, is what? Salvage the ASICs.
Yeah.
You can run them at a loss, which doesn't sound like a great business to me, so that pretty soon you're just unplugging at that point.
Yeah.
Or you can, you have the more sophisticated models where you can run older ASICs at a loss and pair them with some other productive asset so you can paddle back and forth, right? So, Riot's a great example. They got those, massive fleet of S17s that are cranking away. They get the curtailment revenue. You guys know all that stuff a lot better than I can describe it, right?
Yeah.
Besides those three options, what options are there?
There's not a lot.
Is that it?
That's basically it.
And I've heard of a firm now that's recycling the ASICs potentially, so you could break down the ASICs and sell them for parts more so than you could just like the dollar per ton. Yeah.
Who is it, dude? You know?
I can't recall the name.
Yeah.
I can't recall the name.
That would make sense. It's kind of the same business as if you strip down a car for parts, a used car. You make significantly more on a parts basis than you do as a whole thing.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, that it makes sense. I've thought about whenever I'm doing economics for groups that come in, like salvage value is a big portion of it, because I think it goes back to the whole project versus company deal, or versus, however you phrase it. It's such a short lifespan of those assets that the salvage value actually is a big part of the valuation you do on the whole thing. But it's unpredictable too. Like if you're exiting during a bear market when we're down at $15,000 and try to get your salvage value, it's like you're getting peanuts. But that's also why I think buying now or during a bear market, building your company, and then selling when things are crazy is like actually probably the best. Like go dump your machines after you've ran them for 2 years during a bear market, and do you
think that's the optimal? That was going to be my question. Like the optimal time is like if you would buy the most top of the line machines, run them for 2 years, immediately
dump them,
swap them, get new ones, and just stay on a pretty much a 2 year schedule, depending on like where the market's at. Maybe even a shorter horizon, possibly.
Right, and staying away from trying to get all new greenfield stuff, right, and having to build up. Like I almost think find a awesome base asset that you have cheap power long term, build a nice company, run them. Mm-hmm. Don't go and buy your next site and try to grow through a greenfield site where you're having to load up on all this new capital, because like the bear and bull markets are so short in this. You know what I mean? It's a very condensed timeline of like oil. You can have a long bear market or long bull market. Bitcoin's like that, except it's like condensed into this small 4-year cycle, usually around there. I think going and just building assets, your same core asset that you know is a good power price, you got a good PPA, you got good solid understanding on kind of how the power markets work, and build through the new machines that come online. Like sell every 2 years, build a new, grow your hash rate on your current asset that you have. That's kind of as I've thought about it over the past 2-3 years, like that makes more and more sense to me. I don't want to take it away from the direction you are, but I get your comment about like this is a project versus a company. That is probably very much the common thing amongst all the miners out there.
I mean, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I mean, so AQ Capital, we invest in miners as an LP, right? Mm-hmm. So I have a lot of mining proposals that come across my desk, and I have my own underwriting criteria I apply to them, right? Mm-hmm. And treasury management is like one of my top 3 underwriting questions. What's your treasury management strategy? Mm. And I think ASICs are a capital asset that's part of the treasury management, right? So it's like, how are you thinking about when you're selling ASICs versus when you're selling Bitcoin versus when you're selling, holding Bitcoin, right? And some of that. So I'm with you guys. And so if you're a going concern, if you want to be a business, if you want to be a miner, that survives and advances, if you will, right? In this ruthless difficulty adjustment tournament of
hedging, except for Luxor when it came on the last one. Right. They're working on that the hash rate market.
It's brutal. I mean, you're just looking for ways to survive. You're looking for ways to pull future hash rate forward to the present faster than the other guy. And so, what we've come up with here is a 4th option to what we talked about versus salvaging, running at a loss, or pairing it with a productive asset. And that's simply redirecting your hash rate and being able to deduct it from your adjusted gross income. And so when I say redirecting your hash rate, what I actually mean is endowing your hash rate. So this is where we came up with the Bitcoin Endowment. So the Bitcoin Endowment is a private operating foundation. It's a 501c3. We help you with a fair market valuation framework of hash rate that we're going to be publishing in the peer-reviewed literature. It allows you to redirect your hash rate and just point it to the endowment. That's all we're asking you to do. We're not asking you to do anything except redirect a portion of your hash rate, 1%, 2%, 3%, 10%, whatever it is. You get that immediate tax deduction of the value of that hash rate. By the way, that tax deduction, this is not tax advice.
Yeah.
That tax deduction, what's the dollar per terahash Capex right now for new ASICs?
We're probably at like $25.
Has it really gone up that high? Dang.
I mean, you still find them cheaper than that, but if you want to go buy, like a retail person want to go buy something, you're probably going to be paying around there. And it depends on machine too, but I'd say like $25, especially for like the a little bit newer machines. So you can still find some used ones around $15, maybe even a little bit less than that, but you want to buy something new.
It's 25.
It's went up quite I mean, we've seen 75% price appreciation this year. And so from the lows, you're probably around that.
So I'm being even the most conservative accountant who looks at this fair market valuation framework. I'll just go ahead and say it's higher than $25 a terahash of what you can deduct from your tax saving.
I know what it is, but I'm not going to put it out. I'm going to let him talk as much as he feels comfortable doing it. But it is well worth it. It's from a standpoint of the value you're getting on that deduction. It's remarkable. I was shocked, and I feel like, and tell me if you don't want me to say this.
Dude,
but
you're fine. Go for it.
I felt like he was talking to me about it the other day again. We had talked. I don't know. Well, at the last Bitcoin conference, we were talking about it in Miami. And where it's at now, I'm like, man, that is some serious value that from an economic standpoint, for the miners that I think that if it fits their profile, it's as good an opportunity for them to, in a way, hedge. It's kind of like a hedge in that you're getting a value assigned to a future hash rate. You know what I mean? Instead of, because that value could be a lot less in the future, than what they're getting when they dedicate that hash rate to the endowment.
Yeah.
And so from a tax perspective, it's like, man, I could see every group wanting to try to take advantage of this because it's very, very, it's a lot higher on a lock-in basis than what I would prefer to take the risk with. You know what I mean?
Let me ask the dumb question of
there is no dumb question in this.
What is the current tax structure for miners?
What do you mean? Like
how much are they getting taxed?
Oh, dude, it's the way the IRS taxes Bitcoin is ridiculous right now. Like you get taxed as ordinary income. And Austin, you may know if there's been any changes.
Is it still taxes property as well?
So yeah, they tax it as an ordinary income, right? So when I mine and I create coins and I get paid from Foundry or Lux or whoever, that is the value of that Bitcoin at that time. That counts as ordinary income. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that counts as ordinary income. So like I got to pay taxes based on that. If I go and sell it later on, say a week later, or even that night from the time I get paid it to where I sell it, say it went up 10%, that difference is also going to be taxed as a capital gain or capital loss, whatever it may be. So to me, they're hitting it from both angles. It's not accurate to me. You can't do them both. I don't see how you can tax it as the day I get paid that coin, that counts as ordinary income. And then you're also taxing me when I sell it as some type of capital event. It doesn't make sense to me. And so I think it's going to change. I know there was a case with the IRS where they, a guy had brought a case against them and they were trying to settle it. The IRS was, and he had refused to settle it because he wanted it to kind of go through. Yeah. But basically it was on that same thing. I think it was POS. I think they were doing, it was it? Yeah. But the whole thesis was kind of the same of like, you can't tax me here and tax me there. It's one or the other. You can't do both. And so it's like mining gold. When I mine gold, I don't get taxed when I'm putting that gold into my storehouse, right, wherever they store it. You get taxed when you monetize it. And so it's the same with Bitcoin to me, is how can you tax them both ways? Is it a currency? Are you saying when I get paid with Bitcoin from Foundry or Luxor that's a taxable event? Okay, fine if that's the case. But then when I sell it, I shouldn't be getting taxed on that as well. I've already paid my tax on that revenue that I made. So I think there's gonna be some resolution to it, but that's currently how they do it.
Okay.
And then some miners, Jake, in some jurisdictions, they'll get taxed on the energy that they buy.
Right.
So they get taxed on the energy they buy, and they get taxed on the income when they mine it, and they get taxed when they sell their Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And so if
from the federal level, you can write off your OPEX. So like anything I'm buying, but yeah, depending on where you're at, different criteria.
Yeah.
This is like a crazy, wild thing, and I haven't thought through it, so it may not make sense. But just kind of knowing a little bit about the insurance space and then your background in the insurance space, is there a way to merge the two? Because there's a lot of insurance products where it's it's very, very tax efficient for an individual, which essentially particularly whole life insurance, right? It can almost turn into a tax-free bank account that you can kind of play with. Is there any way that you can mesh those two between the Bitcoin mining world and the insurance world?
Gosh, I don't know the answer to that question. That's beyond my pay grade.
If anybody has any cool thoughts about that, or maybe I'm just retarded.
It sounds a lot like Peter Thiel parking his Facebook shares in a Roth IRA.
Yeah,
right. It
exactly.
Sounds like park a mining business inside of a Roth IRA.
Is there some sort of wrapper you can put on this to have better tax treatment?
Or when El Salvador launches their 0% income tax on technology, just hang a shingle down in El Salvador and mine at 0% tax.
Man, that's awesome.
That's not tax advice either. I'm still waiting for one of those proposals to come across my desk. If there's any miner out there who wants to do that, come talk to me.
Come talk to Austin. He'll give it a shot, man.
Yeah. But no, so miners, miners are the ones incentivized to secure the network. Miners are the ones who are incentivized to make sure Bitcoin is perceived as good for the rest of the world, as a common good, as a public good, especially with all the FUD. I mean, they get miners. I don't need to say it to this audience. You guys get it. And then this strategy is a way to just take a portion of your hash rate, redirect it to the endowment. The endowment's going to store that in Bitcoin. We're going to give to charities of your choice in perpetuity, forever. That's our goal. It's not a legal term because forever is a long time, but
and they get to choose.
And they get to choose.
Right.
They get to choose. And then they take that immediate tax deduction. And then again, this is not tax or legal advice, but if you look at what you can deduct, if you're a miner who is planning to have a positive adjusted gross income, and if your ASICs are on year 2, 3, or 4, so you've already kind of bonus depreciated them, and most of the depreciation, you're looking at a big fat tax bill potentially. And with the trends with the ordinals, you guys see what the fees are.
Yeah, they're going
the transaction
up
fees
quite a bit.
It's like 17% this morning when I looked at it. It's insane.
It's a lot.
So, I suspect miners are going to be profitable this year. They weren't last year, but I think on the margin they are. And you take that, you redirect the hash rate, you take that deduction, and if you plow those tax savings into more ASICs, for an LLC, this becomes a really significant value driver of enterprise value.
Can you tell them, do you mind sharing what on a per terahash basis it's coming out to? If you don't have to, man. I know there's some proprietary stuff in here, so I don't want to give away the secret sauce, but
I'll just go ahead and say, if you're an LLC, give us a call.
Right. Okay.
If you're a C corp, it's going to be more of a like for like swap from an ROI perspective on the tax efficiency of this.
Right. But you get the benefit.
Get the benefit of doing good.
Right.
And endowing Bitcoin forever towards your core values of what you value as a person, as a company.
And helping combat the douchebag Lambo driving Bitcoiner, which they try to paint everybody as. Like, it sounds dumb, but that is literally what I feel like big media does to try to embarrass the industry much or like delegitimize it. Is paint everybody as these freaking bros that are just want to drive Lambos.
If I buy a Lambo, are you guys gonna hate me? Because I'm a car guy. Like, I do love. I agree with everything you're saying, but I'm a car guy. Like, I do love Lambos.
It's different, Jake, because I know you're a car guy. So
but I do agree. Different. Like the whole it just makes the whole industry look.
If you
looks childish and flashy. Right, and it sends the totally wrong message to the abroad. But
it's an attempt.
But if I buy a Lambo, like, will you guys hate me or like what?
No, man, and I'll ride in it with you as long as it's not orange and you're wearing blades or something. Right, you know what I mean? Like,
as long as you're wearing your skinny jeans.
Yeah, if I'm wearing my skinny jeans and you got the blades on, do you know what douchebags we're gonna look like? We're gonna roll up to Uchi together. We love Uchi. Still want a sponsorship.
Shout out to Uchi.
Yeah. So, but I think it's. Yeah, carry on.
I jumped in LLCs are going to love it.
Right.
I mean, if you're a private LLC, like it's a great strategy.
Right.
If you're a C corp, you're going to get a boost in your enterprise value because your fleet's going to get a little younger. Okay, so you're going to be pulling forward a little future hash rate, pulling that forward. Your fleet's going to get a little younger. But most importantly, to your point, facta non verba, deeds not words. We can combat the New York Times FUD articles with everything we want to say and tell politicians and all that, or we can pool our fists as a Bitcoin brand. And I don't know about you guys, but I believe Bitcoin 10 years from now will come to be known as as being synonymous with trust. The word trust. The Bitcoin brand is going to be the most trusted brand in the world, and I want to make it the best brand in the world in terms of good. The word good. Bitcoin is good. And so if you're a public miner and you spend a lot of time, trying to combat the ESG narrative or participate in the ESG narrative by having renewables and different things, why not also redirect a percentage of your hash rate to perpetuate values that are important to you in perpetuity into the future? And just to give you guys a sense on this, the scale of what's possible for Bitcoin miners. If we can direct 2% of the hash rate to the endowment over the next 10 years, and just assuming Bitcoin does a very conservative of what it's done in the past, let's say a 20% CAGR over the next 10 years. Let's even call it a 15% compound annual growth rate over the next 10 years. 2% of the hash rate annually, and by the year 2040, Bitcoin as a brand will have an institution of giving larger than the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
How sick is that? That's when you told me the other day. I was like, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal.
That is a big deal.
So this is less about tax efficiency, and this is more about Bitcoin is good, doing good. Let's do good with deeds, not words. And let's fund core developers. Let's fund Bitcoin educators. Let's fund all the Bitcoin nonprofits. But then let's also orange pill the heck out of all the other nonprofits in the world who need Bitcoin on their balance sheet.
You know, where I think this would also work is with like combining it with an orphan well kind of program in states, oil and gas states, ideally, obviously, and making it something that producers can basically dedicate, these assets to Bitcoin miners. A portion of that gets dedicated to the endowment, and we could even probably tie in some carbon credit stuff with that. So I think there's a lot of ways that you probably thought of everything, Austin, but there's a lot of ways where some of this stuff can kind of bleed into other industries, even beyond just mining. Like that literally just came to mind. Like Ryan and I were talking about putting together a fund for the state of Wyoming where basically we go in as a mining entity and want to take over wells that are not economic anymore from a production standpoint or on the idle well list, orphan well list.
Yep.
And this is one where, and we want to set up we were calling it a P&A or reclamation fund, and you dedicate, Hashrate or your reserves, if you're an oil and gas company, that are left in those wells to this fund. And we take like 1% of the mining rewards and put it into like a state run fund. This is something that the state wouldn't have to worry about it, because a lot of them are still like, well, we don't know what to do with Bitcoin. Work with Bitcoin Endowment, kind of tie those together and let it be something where you guys are kind of working with charities and reaping the benefit. Oil and gas companies reap the benefit of maybe carbon credits for giving up reserves, and kind of win-win for everybody. There's a lot of ways though when you kind of have a nonprofit that you can combine that has like a morally positive kind of proposition, and tying that into like economic situations that benefit companies is always a good thing. So I think it's dope, dude.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, we want to make it easy to endow any asset.
Right.
So like I think about mineral rights, you could do a fair market valuation of mineral rights.
Right.
We convert that into Bitcoin that, perpetuates, we fund, so I am convinced more than ever that being involved in this industry is an investment in human ingenuity. And I am, we're just here to be the vehicle to help you endow any asset and turn that into Bitcoin giving forever. And so, hey, you come up with the strategies. We'll just help you fulfill it.
I just think it's great because it's a way of taking away, like, even we saw it like during the trucker stuff, when you were trying to dedicate, like when they shut down basically the ability to donate money through different various groups to the trucker cause up in Canada. This is another one where it's like, man, this Bitcoin endowment's kind of outside of all that stuff. Like you don't have the same kind of obligations and requirements that some of these other fundraising groups do, but they could go through you guys, dedicate to whatever charity they want, right?
Just has to be a 501c3.
Right. It has to be a 501c3.
It can't be a C4, which is more of a political organization.
Right.
501c3. Yeah. Any 501c3. So if you're a Bitcoiner as well, come up with a 501c3 that you feel strongly about it.
Yeah,
get on
there's
our
a
list,
lot of good ones out there. You know what I mean?
That's
there's a lot of good ones out there.
Absolutely.
So are you guys on like a road show right now?
So it's funny, Jake, you'll get a kick out of this. I kind of solicited Justin for private comment. I was like, hey, this is what I've been working on. I'm getting some private comment from Bitcoiners. And now it's quickly become public comment, right?
Sorry, man.
So we have not started the road show. We have not. This has been just kind of sniper onesie twosies. But as I've had, call it 10 conversations with some Bitcoiners that I really trust, like, and respect, and I wanted to make sure.
Did I make that list? I made the list, man. I'm happy I made the list.
You made the list. You made the list.
Oh, man.
I don't know why.
I don't know why, but I made the list. Shut up, Jake.
Your words, not mine. I wanted to make sure. I mean, this is, make no mistake about it, this is a service built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners in service to Bitcoin. So I went about kind of just collecting private comment to make sure this had Bitcoin fingerprints all over this, right? And with those conversations, with the 10 conversations, it turned into 3 clients already.
That's awesome.
So it's
pretty good conversion rate.
What's that?
It's pretty good conversion rate.
That is really good conversion rate. That's true.
We don't expect that conversion rate going forward. Maybe we do. I don't know.
If it fits the economic profile for that company, I don't see why they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense to not do it. I know what number he's getting on there. I wish he could say it, because it's give him a call. I'd encourage everybody to give him a call, because it's like, had we known something like that was available when we were running J, we definitely would have taken advantage of it.
Would you have changed your strategy if you knew that this tool was available?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously would want to probably bring in our accountants to kind of see what's the problem, because there's got to be like an optimal area of dedication of hash rate. So you would have to look at that with like a tax strategy in mind and accounting help. But yeah, absolutely. I think we definitely would have, because I don't know. And also, after you go through a bear market, it's like, this is something you need, like you're saying, getting your fleet younger, basically. Like, you're getting to kind of bring forward a lot of that hash rate. Like, yeah, we definitely would have looked at it a little bit differently. But during those bull runs, especially that last one, everybody's like, oh, it's always going up. It's like, no, it's not. It's not going to always go up. It's ridiculous. It's like oil. You know what I mean? You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to. So
what I love about this space is just how like passionate everybody in this space is. And I think that's one of the cool things about this show. Having people who like have had careers and then like stumble upon Bitcoin. They're like, no, this is what I need to do with my life. Like, it's cool as shit. Like, what else are you going to, and like, I just feel like there's a few bad apples probably that I could think of that kind of come to mind in the industry, but like not many, not near as many as compared to like any other industry in the world. It seems like for the most part, it's like genuinely great people who like want to do good in the world, and Bitcoin is like the tool to see that manifest.
God, and I think it weeds them out too. Yeah. This industry weeds out the bad actors pretty fast.
Really quickly.
Yeah.
Because it's such a small community. I think we've realized that through this show, like how small it is. Yeah. I think we police our own, and we get those bad apples out as quick as possible.
All the benefits in life come from compound interest. And I believe that comes from people as well. Play long-term games with long-term people. And I believe, and we believe, that Bitcoin is the longest duration game that you can play. So you might as well play in this game, because this game has fair rules. This game has accountability. This game is all about trust and fairness. It's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. So you guys you're 100%. I've been blown. I suspected this was the case getting into Bitcoin, that it was going to be really smart people, because that's all as you're taking in the 10,000 hours of content that's necessary to understand Bitcoin, or at least that's how long it took me, because I'm not so smart. But you suspect that Bitcoiners are going to be fun to work with and great to work with, and you suspect they're super smart. I've been blown away by 2 things. Everyone I meet is smarter than me, which that tells me I'm in the right room.
Yep.
And then the second thing is I'm overwhelmed with people like Justin, people like yourself now that we've met, and others that I'm doing business with and investing in and everything, who will just trip over themselves to help you. How can I help? How can I help? Everyone has a servant's heart. And gosh, if you look at what's at the Nakamoto of Bitcoin and what's at the center of it, I mean, it's hope, it's abundance, it's servant's heart, it's all those things. And we just need to let the rest of the world know about it.
It's exciting and it's fun.
That's right.
It is.
On top of all that.
And it's not short hours, though. It's long hours.
No,
it is really long hours.
We all work really hard.
Really long hours.
But it's so cool whenever you get everybody together in a room, whether it be 20, 30, or 1,000 of us.
That's true.
We just have such a great time together.
You do, and it's got a really good spirit about it. So it just, you can feel the energy with the people that are in there. Usually, it's really a good spirit, good vibe, good energy. So, in Austin, like, you're such a good dude. And I know I get the impression you don't like me saying this, and it's probably just because you're a humble dude. But he is like Bitcoin Jesus. You look like him.
Yeah.
You got the kind heart. You're a wise dude. You care about helping other people. I'm like, this guy's like, he is Bitcoin Jesus.
We should be your disciples.
He's always spreading the gospel of Satoshi, as Jake always says. So, yeah,
Well, that name, Bitcoin Jesus, comes with so much baggage back to the fork wars, right? So
let's just hope you don't get crucified. Okay?
He did. He was left at the altar.
I mean, speaking of tax benefits, maybe if we just I don't know, maybe made Bitcoin a religion, maybe we get some better tax
we would have so
benefits.
many members of the Bitcoin church so fast, we would fill up. Yeah, then we got all kinds of tax benefits.
I mean, if you sit down and try to do the math on what the longest standing institutions are in the world, I mean, try to really think
Catholic
about
Church,
it.
probably.
Man,
Catholic Church, right. Churches are some of the longest standing. And how do churches survive?
Think about that.
Yeah, how do religions and churches
staying
survive?
outside of the tax code?
Yeah, well, that's a big part.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
Well, one, they have literally religious followings, so people who will do anything to protect
community
that network. They have that community who will they'll die on the cross for what they believe and for their beliefs. They will pick up their family and move. They'll sacrifice themselves for their cause. So they have that community. But then that community typically gives. Mm-hmm. They give to the rest of the community. So there's typically what's tithing, right? Mm-hmm. So tithing was historically 10% of everything you goes to the institution, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not suggesting you go that extreme. If you want, you should. I mean, right?
Yeah, but it's also the giving of time, right? Not only to the church, but to the community, to other people who are within the church. It's a giving of, just pretty much just your thoughts,
energy,
your mind share and energy. Yeah. Everything goes into that, especially growing up, being in the church 3-4 days a week, for years, for pretty much most of my life. Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it. Yeah.
I could get into
Bitcoin's no different. Welcome to First Baptist Bitcoin.
Right. First Baptist Bitcoin. I could get into my mom not letting us celebrate Halloween and
I couldn't read Harry Potter.
Told me, told me all kinds of stuff. But before we go, we got to have today's producer, come on real quick. Come here, dude. You can come take this seat and we'll hear about your soccer freaking domination, huh?
Is this mic on here for him? Or?
That one's not on. So
it's not. Come here, bro.
Pop onto yours real quick.
Come here, man.
There you go.
Producer for the day. Why don't you tell everybody your name?
Jackson.
Yeah, look at the camera over here. Looking down there. See that?
Yeah.
Jackson Ballard. In producing the show today, coming off a big soccer win.
A lot of people know Jackson. So Jackson, you may not know this, but you were on stage. You know that you were on stage, but
yes,
you don't realize that everybody knows you from Empower 22.
Yes,
you came on stage.
I know. My dad tells me a lot that people want me to come at those conferences things.
You got to come to Empower next year.
Yeah.
Why didn't you bring him this year?
He didn't. He bailed
Jackson,
on me.
what are you doing, dude?
I mean, I don't know anything about Bitcoin, but yes, I know it's good. It's good.
Justin, what are you doing?
Okay, all I know is that it's good, and yes, it's freedom money.
Freedom money,
dude. He nailed it. That's all you needed.
Good job.
It took the rest of us 10,000 hours to figure it out, and you know that already.
Pretty good.
Well, I knew this before my dad.
Oh, you did. All of a sudden, you know before your dad.
Yes.
All right.
So, are you going to go pro in soccer or in Bitcoin? You think?
Soccer.
Okay.
He's going to get paid in Bitcoin, though.
That's right.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No.
Well, I don't know.
No maybe about it, bro.
What do you mean there's no baby?
No maybe about it.
Pay me in Bitcoin.
Yeah, we're going to get paid in Bitcoin.
Right,
Dollars won't
fine.
exist by the time you can get a salary.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
They will, you just won't want them.
Yeah, you won't want them.
They'll be worth nothing.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks for producing the show today, bro.
Yeah.
You crushed it.
Nailed it.
Congrats on the hat trick. You said you had a hat trick? Or?
I almost got a hat trick.
Off the post. He had 2 in, 1 off the post.
Dude.
But in my season in total, I've had a hat trick.
He had 3 for the season. He really came on the end of the year. Tell him what you're getting because you got your 3rd goal.
I got invited to a legacy team.
Well, you did get invited. Yes, he did today.
Congrats,
Someone
man.
asked me if they wanted to join the legacy team.
Is that like Premier League?
It's like a travel team.
Manchester United.
Awesome.
Yeah, someone asked me to join, and I'm not even the best on the team. There's like two other players, Giovanni and Caleb. They're awesome. I can't beat them.
It's not about how you play. It's also about your swag.
Well, yes.
And he's got the dopest hair of anybody on the
Sure, I might have like more skills, as in like I could know how to get past. But honestly, they probably are better than me. and shooting at like goals.
Currently,
total.
they are.
Yes, currently.
They're also older
Not
than you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Caleb's like my age.
Which one's Caleb?
Tall kid.
He ain't your age.
Yeah, he's,
I doubt he has as
Gio
many trophies
is.
as you, though.
Yeah, they didn't get asked, but I just got asked. I wasn't even the best, but sure, I'm one of the best, maybe. But
I saw you on the right day, bro.
Yeah.
Saw you on the right day. That's all.
Sure, I'm one of the best, but I'm not the best out of the whole team.
I thought you were going to tell me you're getting a PC now.
Oh, yeah, I am getting a PC now. I'm going to drain my dad's bank account.
That won't take much. That'll be easy to do. So.
But yeah, I got invited to the legacy team.
All right.
Good job, dude.
Well, thank you for your assistance today, despite you playing your dorky music in the background. Or watch it. Love you, brah.
All right, guys, if you like the show, take 2 seconds to leave us a rating and review, share with all your friends. We will catch you guys on the next one.